Min wiped the sweat from his forehead and checked his tool kit one more time. The environmental controls on Nexus Station were acting up again, and it was his job to fix them. He had been working as an engineer on the station for 2 years now, and he knew every pipe, wire, and ventilation shaft like the back of his hand. Nexus Station was not like other space stations. It was built as a meeting place for different species from across the galaxy. Humans ran most of the technical systems, but diplomats and visitors from dozens of worlds walked the halls every day. Min liked his job. He fixed things quietly, stayed out of the way, and watched the incredible variety of alien life that passed through. Today, he was working near the observation deck. This was one of the most beautiful places on the station. Huge windows showed the stars and the swirling colors of nearby nebulas. Diplomats often came here to talk or to simply enjoy the view. Min climbed down from the ventilation panel he had been working on. He stretched his back and decided to take a short break. The observation deck was mostly empty. Only a few beings stood near the windows, lost in thought as they gazed at the cosmos. Then he saw her. She stood alone by the largest window, her body silhouetted against the stars. Min had seen Velisari before. They were an amphibious species, with smooth skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. But this particular Velisari was different. She was stunning. Her skin glowed with soft blue and silver patterns that shifted like water reflecting moonlight. She was taller than Min, with graceful limbs and large eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. Delicate membranes framed her face and neck, moving gently as she breathed. She wore the formal robes of a diplomat, which only added to her elegance. Min felt his heart skip a beat. He had never been good with words when it came to attractive people. Back on Earth, his friends had always teased him about being shy. Here on the station, he kept to himself even more. What would someone like her ever see in a simple engineer who spent his days covered in grease and dust? Without thinking, he whispered to himself in Korean. The words came out soft and quiet, barely more than a breath. "She's so beautiful, I wonder if she'd wed me." It was the kind of thing people say to themselves when they think no one is listening. A silly thought, a wishful dream spoken into empty air. Min smiled at his own foolishness and started to turn back to his work. But then the Velisari woman turned around. Her large eyes focused directly on him. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin shifted from cool blue to warm gold. Her expression was difficult for him to read, but she was definitely looking right at him. Min froze. His tool bag nearly slipped from his hands. How could she have heard him? He had barely whispered, and he had spoken in Korean, not in the common galactic language. There was no way she could have understood him. Yet she continued to stare at him. Her head tilted slightly to one side, and the golden glow on her skin brightened. "Min, there you are." Byung-ho's voice broke the moment. Min's fellow engineer came walking up with a data pad in his hand. Byung-ho was shorter and rounder than Min, with a friendly face and a smile that never seemed to fade. "I've been looking all over for you," Byung-ho said. "We need to check the coolant levels in Sector 7 before the end of shift." "Right, yes, okay," Min said, still distracted. He glanced back toward the window, but the Velisari woman had turned away again. She seemed to be studying the stars once more, but her skin still glowed with that warm golden color. "What are you staring at?" Byung-ho asked. He followed Min's gaze and whistled low. "Oh, I see. That's the new Velisari delegate. She arrived 3 days ago. Her name is Lyra, I think. She's here to work on trade agreements." "She's beautiful," Min said without thinking. "Ha, you're not wrong," Byung-ho said with a grin. "But she's way out of your league, my friend. Come on, we have work to do." Min let Byung-ho pull him away, but his mind kept wandering back to those few seconds when Lyra had looked at him. Had she really heard his whisper? It seemed impossible. The observation deck was large, and he had been at least 10 meters away from her. Besides, he had spoken so quietly. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. T-Min went through the motions of checking systems and making repairs, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those glowing patterns on Lyra's skin shifting to gold. When his shift finally ended, T-Min headed back to his quarters. The corridors of Nexus Station were busy with the evening crew change. He nodded to a few people he knew but did not stop to chat. As he walked past one of the central plazas, he saw her again. Lyra stood near a fountain, speaking with another Velisari. This one was older, with darker skin and more subdued patterns. They seemed to be having a serious conversation. But as T-Min passed by, Lyra turned her head and looked directly at him again. This time, she raised one hand in a gesture that might have been a greeting. The patterns on her face brightened to that same warm gold. T-Min's face turned red. He managed a clumsy wave back and then hurried away, feeling like a fool. Behind him, he heard a sound that might have been Velisari laughter. It was a musical, bubbling noise that made him feel both embarrassed and strangely happy. The next morning, T-Min reported for his shift as usual. He was assigned to check the translation equipment in one of the conference rooms. These rooms were used for important diplomatic meetings, so the equipment had to work perfectly. He was alone in the room, testing microphones and calibrating language filters, when the door opened behind him. "Excuse me," a voice said. It spoke in perfect Galactic Common, with a melodic quality that reminded T-Min of water flowing over stones. He turned around and nearly dropped his testing device. Lyra stood in the doorway. Up close, she was even more striking. He could see the complex patterns in her skin, the way they pulsed gently with her heartbeat. Her eyes were kind and curious. "I am sorry to interrupt your work," she said, "but I wanted to speak with you." T-Min's mouth went dry. "Me? Why?" Lyra stepped into the room. Her movements were fluid and graceful. "Yesterday, in the observation deck, you said something. I heard you." T-Min felt his face grow hot with shame. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just talking to myself. I didn't think anyone could hear me." "But I did hear you," Lyra said. Her skin patterns shifted through several colors, settling on a soft green that T-Min did not recognize. "My people have very good hearing. We evolved in the oceans of our world where we needed to hear across great distances underwater. What sounds like a whisper to you is clear speech to me." "Oh," T-Min said weakly, "I really am sorry." "Why are you apologizing?" Lyra asked. She tilted her head again in that curious gesture. "Among my people, when someone speaks their desire, it is considered honest. You spoke your heart. There is no shame in that." T-Min did not know what to say. He stood there, tool in hand, staring at this beautiful alien woman who had somehow heard his most private thought. "I should get back to work," he finally managed. Lyra's patterns shifted to something that looked like amusement. "Of course, but perhaps we will speak again soon." She left the room, and T-Min stood alone with his racing heart and his confused thoughts. He had no idea what had just happened, but he had the strange feeling that his life on Nexus Station was about to become much more complicated. 3 days passed since Lyra had spoken to him in the conference room. T-Min tried to focus on his work, but it was difficult. He kept seeing her everywhere, not just once or twice, but constantly. When he went to fix a power conduit in the diplomatic wing, she was there, reading from a data pad in the hallway. When he took his lunch break in the station cafeteria, she sat 3 tables away with other delegates. When he walked through the garden dome to check on the atmospheric processors, she was standing among the earth plants, touching the leaves with gentle curiosity. Each time she would look up and see him. Each time her skin would glow with that warm golden color, and each time T-Min would feel his face turn red and hurry away. "You're acting strange," Byung-ho said one afternoon. They were working together to replace a worn pump in the water recycling system. Every time I mention the diplomatic wing, you get nervous. What's going on? Min sighed. He had known Byung-ho for 2 years. They had become good friends during their time on the station. Maybe it would help to tell someone. Remember that Velisari delegate, Lyra? The beautiful one you were staring at? Yes, I remember. I said something stupid, Min admitted. When I first saw her, I whispered to myself. I thought no one could hear me, but she heard everything. Byung-ho's eyes went wide. What did you say? I said she was beautiful, and I wondered if she would marry me. For a moment, Byung-ho just stared at him. Then he started laughing. It was not cruel laughter, but it was loud and long. Oh, Min, my friend, that is both very sweet and very, very foolish. I know, Min said miserably. I can't believe I said it out loud. Wait, Byung-ho said, his laughter fading. She heard you. How is that possible? She told me her people have incredible hearing. They evolved underwater and can hear sounds across huge distances. Byung-ho's expression changed from amused to concerned. Min, do you know anything about Velisari culture? Not much. Why? I think you should talk to Commander Haewon. This might be more serious than you think. That was how Min found himself in the station commander's office an hour later. Commander Haewon was a stern woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sit down, Min, she said, gesturing to a chair. Byung-ho told me about your situation. I think we need to have a serious conversation. Am I in trouble? Min asked. Not trouble exactly, Haewon said, but you may have accidentally done something very significant. Tell me exactly what happened. Min explained everything. The commander listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temples. I was afraid of this, she said. Min, in Velisari culture, spoken words carry enormous weight. They do not lie easily, and they take verbal commitments very seriously. When you spoke those words, even as a whisper, Lyra may have interpreted them as a formal declaration of interest. Min felt his stomach drop. What does that mean? It means she might think you made a marriage proposal. But I didn't. I was just talking to myself. I understand that, Haewon said patiently. But the Velisari don't really have a concept of talking to yourself. Because they can hear so well, they assume that any words spoken aloud are meant to be heard. To them, your whisper was as clear as if you had shouted it. Min put his head in his hands. What am I supposed to do? You have two choices, the commander said. You can go to Lyra and explain that it was a misunderstanding. Tell her that humans often speak without meaning to be heard. She will likely understand and the matter will be closed. Or you can be honest about your feelings. If you meant what you said, even a little, you can tell her that. But be warned. If you pursue this, you will need to learn about Velisari courtship customs. They are very different from human ones. Min walked out of the commander's office with his mind spinning. He spent the rest of his shift working on autopilot, barely aware of what his hands were doing. That evening, he found himself back at the observation deck. The stars looked the same as they had days ago, but everything felt different now. You come here often now, a voice said behind him. He turned to find Lyra standing a few meters away. In the dim light of the observation deck, her bioluminescent patterns glowed more brightly. Tonight they were a soft purple mixed with silver. I've been thinking, Min said. He was surprised by how steady his voice sounded. About what I said, about what you heard. I have been thinking about it too, Lyra said. She moved closer and Min could see the patterns shifting on her skin. Among my people, when someone speaks their heart so clearly, it is considered a great compliment. But I should explain something, Min said. Humans are different. We often say things without meaning for others to hear. We think private thoughts out loud sometimes. It's a habit. I know, Lyra said. I have been studying human customs since we spoke. Your species is very interesting. You say one thing with your words but hide your true meanings. You speak to yourselves. You make sounds that mean nothing, like laughter or sighs. That must seem strange to you. Not strange, Lyra said thoughtfully. Beautiful. Your people feel so much that it overflows in unexpected ways. We Velisari are very controlled. We only speak when we have something important to say. But humans speak for the joy of speaking. You speak to connect, to comfort, to share your inner world. T-Min had never thought of it that way. So you don't think I was rude? Rude? No. Lyra's pattern shifted to warm gold again. I think you were honest in a way my people have forgotten how to be. You spoke a desire without calculating the consequences. That takes courage. It wasn't courage, T-Min said with a small laugh. It was just me being stupid. I do not think you are stupid, Lyra said. She was standing very close now. I think you saw something beautiful and spoke the truth. Among my people, that would be the beginning of courtship. And what about with us? T-Min asked. His heart was beating fast. What is this? I do not know, Lyra admitted. We are from different worlds, different species, but I would like to know you better, T-Min. Would that be acceptable? T-Min felt a smile spread across his face. Yes, that would be very acceptable. Over the next 2 weeks, T-Min and Lyra met whenever their schedules allowed. She taught him about her people, about the deep oceans of her homeworld and the cities built in underwater canyons. She explained how Velisari communicated not just with sound, but with the patterns on their skin, creating a visual language as complex as any spoken one. In return, T-Min taught her about Earth. He showed her pictures of mountains and deserts, oceans and forests. He taught her Korean phrases and explained human poetry. She found it fascinating that humans would arrange words not for information but for beauty. You have a word in your language, she said one day. They were in the station's small library, surrounded by data files from 100 worlds. Jiang, your friend Byung-ho told me about it, a feeling of connection that grows slowly over time. Yes, T-Min said. It's hard to translate exactly. It's deeper than friendship but different from romantic love. It's a bond that builds through shared experiences. Lyra's patterns shifted to a deep blue he had not seen before. We have something similar. We call it Thurin. It means the knowing of someone's heart without words. I think I'm starting to feel that with you, T-Min said quietly. As am I, Lyra replied. But their growing connection did not go unnoticed. Other humans on the station looked at them with curiosity and sometimes concern. Some thought it was wonderful that two species could form such a bond. Others worried about the complications of such a relationship. The Velisari delegation had mixed reactions too. Some were intrigued by the idea of human-Velisari friendship. Others were deeply traditional and believed that relationships should only happen within their own species. One evening, as T-Min was finishing his shift, Commander Haewon called him to her office again. I thought you should know, she said. A senior Velisari official is arriving at the station tomorrow, Ambassador Kale. He's Lyra's uncle and one of the most traditional voices in Velisari society. Why is he coming? Because word has spread about you and Lyra. He wants to meet you. T-Min felt worry creep up his spine. Is that bad? I honestly don't know, Haewon said, but I suggest you be prepared. Ambassador Kale is known for being very protective of Velisari traditions. That night, T-Min could barely sleep. He had finally found someone who made him happy, someone who saw beyond his humble position and shy nature. But now it seemed that their different worlds might pull them apart before they had really begun. Ambassador Kale arrived on Nexus Station with an entourage of 6 other Velisari. He was an imposing figure, taller even than Lyra, with skin that displayed deep ocean colors. Dark blues and purples moved across his body in slow, deliberate patterns. His eyes were ancient and knowing. T-Min watched from an observation window as the ambassador's ship docked. His hands were shaking slightly. Beside him, Lyra stood with her own patterns muted to respectful grays and whites. "He will want to meet you today," she said quietly. "I am sorry. I did not expect him to come so quickly." "It's okay," T-Min said, though his voice betrayed his nervousness. "I understand. Family is important." "He is more than family," Lyra explained. "He helped raise me after my parents died. He is very traditional, but he is not cruel. He simply believes in our old ways." 2 hours later, T-Min stood in a formal meeting room. Commander Haewon had given him permission to leave his shift for this meeting. Byung-ho had wished him luck with a worried expression. Ambassador Kale entered the room with Lyra at his side. The other Velisari remained outside. The ambassador's patterns shifted to a formal silver as he studied T-Min. "You are the human who spoke marriage words to my niece," Kale said. His voice was deep and resonant, like distant thunder underwater. "Yes, Ambassador," T-Min said. He tried to stand straight and confident, though his heart was racing. "Though I should explain that I did not know she could hear me." "Ignorance does not erase action," Kale said. "But Lyra has explained human customs to me. I understand that your people speak carelessly at times." The word carelessly stung a bit, but T-Min nodded. "We do. But I want you to know that even though I did not expect to be heard, the feeling behind my words was real." Kale's patterns flickered with something that might have been surprise. "You admit this openly." "Yes, Lyra is remarkable. I have never met anyone like her. If my whispered words have caused problems, I apologize. But I cannot apologize for the feeling itself." Lyra's skin glowed briefly with warm gold before she controlled it back to neutral tones. Kale was silent for a long moment. His patterns swirled through several colors as he thought. Finally, he spoke again. "Among our people, when a male declares interest in marriage, he must prove his worthiness. This is an ancient tradition. It ensures that bonds are formed between those who are truly compatible." "I understand," T-Min said, though he had no idea what was coming next. "These are called the trials of worth," Kale continued. "There are 3 trials. They test intelligence, adaptability, and truth of heart. If you fail any trial, the courtship ends. If you succeed in all 3, you earn the right to pursue a formal bond." "Uncle," Lyra said, her patterns flashing with alarm. "That is not necessary. T-Min and I are simply getting to know each other." "You have told me yourself that you have feelings for this human," Kale said. "And he has just admitted his feelings are real. If this is so, then the proper path must be followed." "But the trials were made for Velisari," Lyra protested. "They may not be fair for a human." "Then perhaps this human is not suitable," Kale said simply. T-Min saw the distress in Lyra's patterns. He took a breath and stepped forward. "I will do the trials," he said. Both Velisari turned to look at him. "You do not have to," Lyra said. "This is too much to ask." "You're right, I don't have to," T-Min agreed. "But I want to. If this is how your people determine compatibility, then I will try. I cannot promise I will succeed, but I can promise I will do my best." Kale's patterns shifted to something that might have been approval. "Very well. The first trial will begin tomorrow. I will send you the details." After the meeting ended and Kale left, Lyra and T-Min stood alone in the room. "You should not have agreed," Lyra said. Her patterns were agitated, flashing through colors rapidly. "The trials are difficult even for Velisari males. For a human, they may be impossible." "Maybe," T-Min said. "But maybe that's the point. I need to show your uncle that humans can be worthy too, not by being like Velisari, but by being the best of what humans are." "And what is that?" Lyra asked. T-Min smiled. "I guess we're about to find out." The first trial came the next morning. T-Min was escorted to a laboratory deep in the station's research section. Ambassador Kale was there, along with 2 other Velisari scientists. In the center of the room sat a device that looked ancient and complex. This is a tuning sphere, Kale explained. It is an old Velisari instrument used for meditation and emotional balance. This particular sphere has been broken for 300 years. Many have tried to repair it, but all have failed. Your task is to make it work again. Min approached the device. It was about the size of a basketball, made of a crystalline material that seemed to glow from within. Strange symbols covered its surface, and mechanical components were visible through transparent sections. "How long do I have?" Min asked. "As long as you need," Kale said, "but most give up within a day." Min examined the sphere carefully. He could see where pieces had broken or worn away. The internal mechanisms were unlike anything he had worked with before. They did not seem to follow normal mechanical principles. He spent hours studying it. He tried applying standard engineering solutions, but nothing worked. The sphere remained dark and silent. By evening, his eyes were tired and his back ached from bending over the device. Byung-ho brought him food and sat with him for a while. "Any progress?" his friend asked. "None," Min admitted. "I don't understand how it works. It's not like any machine I've ever seen." "Maybe that's the problem," Byung-ho said thoughtfully. "You're thinking of it as a machine, but you said it's used for meditation and emotion, right? Maybe it's not just about mechanical function." After Byung-ho left, Min thought about those words. He looked at the sphere again with fresh eyes. What if it was not just a device to be repaired? What if it was something more? He began to think about the sphere differently. Instead of trying to fix broken parts, he tried to understand what the sphere was meant to do. It was supposed to help with emotional balance. That meant it had to respond to feelings somehow, not just mechanical input. Min placed his hands on the sphere and closed his eyes. He thought about why he was here. He thought about Lyra, about the moment he first saw her by the window. He thought about the fear and hope mixing in his heart. Slowly, the sphere began to glow. The light was faint at first, but it grew stronger. Patterns emerged on its surface, similar to the patterns on Velisari's skin. The sphere began to emit a low, musical tone that filled the room. When Min opened his eyes, he found Kale standing nearby, watching with an unreadable expression. "How did you do it?" the ambassador asked. "I stopped trying to fix it like an engineer," Min said. "I tried to understand it like a person. The sphere doesn't respond to technical skill alone. It responds to genuine emotion. That's why it's been broken so long. People were trying to repair it with their hands and minds, but they needed to repair it with their hearts." For the first time, Kale's patterns showed something like respect. "You have passed the first trial. Few Velisari have shown such insight." The second trial came 3 days later. Min was given breathing equipment and taken to one of the station's water tanks. These tanks were used to create comfortable environments for aquatic species during their stay. The tank had been modified for the trial. It was much deeper than normal, extending down into the lower levels of the station. At the bottom, Min could see a small glowing marker. "The second trial tests adaptability," Kale explained. "You must reach the bottom of this tank and retrieve the marker. The pressure is extreme and the water is very cold. Even with equipment, it will be uncomfortable and dangerous for a human." Min looked down into the dark water. He could feel his old fears rising. He had never been a strong swimmer. The deep water made him nervous. But he thought of Lyra, waiting somewhere in the station. He thought of proving that humans could adapt and overcome. "I'm ready," he said. The first several meters were not too difficult. The water was cold, but his suit protected him. But as he descended deeper, the pressure began to build. His ears hurt. His lungs felt compressed even though he was breathing from his tank. The cold seeped through his suit, making his muscles stiff. Halfway down, Min stopped. He held onto a guide cable and tried to steady himself. The darkness below seemed endless. Fear whispered in his mind, telling him to go back up. Then he remembered something Lyra had told him. She had described the deep trenches of her homeworld, the places where young Velisari went to prove themselves. She had spoken about fear being natural, but courage being the choice to continue anyway. Min pushed downward, his muscles screamed, his breath came in short gasps, but he did not stop. Meter by meter he descended. When he finally reached the bottom and grasped the marker, he felt a surge of triumph. The journey back up was easier. When he broke the surface, Kale was standing at the edge of the tank. "You succeeded," the ambassador said, "but it took you twice as long as a Velisari would need." "I know," Min said, gasping for breath, "but I did not give up. Humans may not be built for your world, but we are stubborn. We adapt. We find ways." Later, Jaiwan, another engineer who had helped him prepare, found Min in the locker room. "Everyone is talking about what you're doing," Jaiwan said. She was a kind woman who had worked on the station for 5 years. "We're all rooting for you." "Thanks," Min said, "but there's still one more trial." "The trial of truth, right?" Jaiwan asked. "What do you think that will be?" "I don't know," Min admitted, "but I think it will be the hardest one yet." The third trial did not come immediately. Ambassador Kale made Min wait for a week. During that time, Min returned to his regular work, but everyone on the station seemed to know about the trials. People he barely knew wished him luck. Even some of the alien visitors expressed curiosity about the human who was attempting Velisari courtship customs. Lyra remained distant during this time. She explained that it was tradition. While the trials were ongoing, she could not influence the outcome with her presence. But Min sometimes caught glimpses of her watching him from afar, her patterns glowing with colors he could now recognize as concern and hope. Finally, Kale summoned him to the Garden Dome. This was Min's favorite place on the station. Earth plants grew there alongside vegetation from other worlds, creating a strange but beautiful mix of life. The dome's transparent ceiling showed the stars beyond. "The third trial is the trial of true intent," Kale said. They stood among flowering plants that had been brought from the Velisari homeworld. These flowers glowed softly in the dim light, responding to sound with gentle pulses. "You must prove that your words were genuine, that the feeling in your heart matches the words you spoke." "How do I do that?" Min asked. "That is for you to determine," Kale said. "Among our people, this trial has many forms. Some write poetry in bioluminescent patterns on their own skin. Some compose songs that can be heard across ocean depths. Some create works of art that speak to the soul. You must find your own way to prove your truth." "And if I cannot?" "Then you will have failed," Kale said simply. "You have until the next new moon rises over the station. That gives you 4 days." Min spent the first day in confusion. He was not a poet. He was not an artist. He was just an engineer who fixed broken things. How could he create something that would prove the depth of his feelings? He talked to Byung-ho, who suggested writing a letter. He talked to Jaiwan, who suggested creating a holographic display. But nothing felt right. None of these ideas captured what he wanted to say. On the second day, Min stood in the garden dome and looked at the Velisari flowers. They pulsed with light in response to every sound. A door closing made them flash briefly. Voices made them glow in complex patterns. Even the hum of the station systems created gentle waves of luminescence across the flower bed. An idea began to form in his mind. Min had spent 2 years working on the environmental systems of Nexus Station. He knew every control, every program, every way the station could be manipulated. What if he could turn the entire garden dome into a canvas? What if he could use light, water, and sound to create something that spoke in both human and Velisari languages? He rushed to find Jaiwan. She listened to his idea with growing excitement. "It's brilliant," she said, "but it will take all of our spare time to program. Can we do it in 2 days?" "We have to try," Min said. They worked through the night. T-Min programmed the lighting systems, the water features, and the atmospheric controls. Jaiwan helped him integrate everything into a single coordinated display. Byung-ho, when he learned what they were doing, volunteered to help with the sound system. T-Min also wrote. He pulled from deep in his memory, from the poetry his grandmother had taught him as a child. He wrote about seeing someone beautiful and feeling the world shift. He wrote about fear and courage, about being different yet finding connection. He wrote in Korean, but he also translated his feelings into concepts that Velasari could understand through their patterns and sounds. By the fourth day, T-Min was exhausted but ready. He sent a message to Kale, telling him to bring Lyra to the Garden Dome that evening. As the station's artificial day turned to artificial night, a small crowd gathered outside the dome. Word had spread about what T-Min was attempting. Humans, Velasari, and members of other species waited to see what would happen. Inside the dome, T-Min stood at the control panel. His hands shook slightly as he initialized the program. Commander Haewon had given special permission for this display, though she had warned him that if anything went wrong, he would be fixing it for months. Kale entered first, his patterns formal and reserved. Then Lyra came in, and T-Min's breath caught. She was beautiful as always, but tonight her patterns showed her nervousness. Gold and silver flickered across her skin like starlight. "You may begin," Kale said. T-Min activated the program. The dome's lights dimmed. Then slowly, the garden began to glow. The Velasari flowers responded to the programmed sounds, creating waves of light that pulsed through the flower beds. The fountains began to spray water in timed patterns, their droplets catching the light and creating moving rainbows. But the real display was on the dome's ceiling. T-Min had programmed the station's external lights to shine through the transparent panels in specific patterns. These patterns mimicked the bioluminescent language of the Velasari people. The first pattern spelled out a simple message in Velasari: "I see you." Then the pattern shifted, becoming more complex. It told a story through light and shadow. The story of a man who worked quietly, who thought himself ordinary, who stood before a window and saw someone extraordinary. The patterns showed his fear, his hope, his wonder. The water fountains began to spray in rhythm, and the sound system played music that T-Min had composed. It was simple, using sounds from both Earth and the Velasari homeworld. Ocean waves mixed with human melodies. The music told the same story as the lights, but in a language that could be felt in the chest. Throughout the display, Korean words appeared in human text on smaller screens around the dome. These were the poems T-Min had written. They spoke of Jeong, that slow-building connection. They spoke of seeing beauty and being changed by it. They spoke of two different worlds touching through the courage of honest words. The climax of the display came when all elements combined. Light, water, sound, and words merged into a single moment. The pattern on the dome's ceiling showed two different patterns, one human and one Velasari, intertwining and creating something new. The music swelled. The fountains created a spiral of water that caught the light and held it, suspended like a captured star. Then gently everything faded. The lights returned to normal. The fountains became quiet. The flowers settled into a soft, peaceful glow. T-Min looked at Lyra. Her entire body glowed with brilliant gold, so bright it almost hurt to look at. Patterns raced across her skin faster than he had ever seen, showing emotions too complex for words. Her eyes were wide, and if Velasari could cry, he thought she might be crying. Kale stood silent for a long moment. His own patterns had shifted to deep, thoughtful colors. Finally, he spoke. "In all my years, I have never seen a human attempt to speak in our visual language," he said slowly. "You have taken your technology, your understanding of systems, and your poetry, and you have created something that speaks to both our peoples." "Did I pass?" T-Min asked. His voice came out barely above a whisper. "You did more than pass," Kale said. His patterns shifted to a warm orange that T-Min had learned meant respect. You have shown me that courtship is not about proving you are like us. It is about showing that your differences can create something beautiful. Lyra moved forward. She reached out and took T-Min's hands in her own. Her skin was cool and smooth, and where they touched, her patterns glowed even brighter. That was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me, she said. Outside the dome, the gathered crowd erupted in applause. Humans cheered. Velisari created harmonizing sounds that filled the station corridors. Even the other alien species expressed their approval in their own ways. Byung-ho burst into the dome, grinning widely. Jaewon followed, looking proud. Other station workers came to congratulate T-Min, shaking his hand and patting his back. But T-Min only had eyes for Lyra. She was looking at him with an expression that needed no translation, no patterns, no words. It was pure joy. There is still much to discuss, Kale said, though his tone was much warmer than before. Velisari human courtship is unprecedented. There will be challenges ahead. Questions of where you will live, how you will bridge your biological differences, what kind of future you can build together. I know, T-Min said, but we'll figure it out. That's what humans do. We adapt, we find ways. And Velisari are patient, Lyra added. We can take the time needed to build something lasting. Kale nodded slowly. Then I give my blessing to this courtship. May you both teach each other the best of your peoples. As the crowd dispersed and the station returned to its normal rhythm, T-Min and Lyra walked together through the garden dome. They talked about the future, about their fears and hopes. They talked about the practical challenges they would face. But mostly, they simply enjoyed being together. Two souls from different worlds who had found each other through a whispered word and the courage to be honest. The garden flowers continued to glow softly around them, pulsing with the gentle rhythm of their voices, bearing silent witness to the beginning of something new. 6 months passed after T-Min completed the trials. Life on Nexus Station continued its normal rhythms, but for T-Min and Lyra, everything had changed. Their relationship became a quiet constant in their lives, woven between work duties and the challenges of bridging two different worlds. They learned each other's languages, both spoken and unspoken. T-Min studied the complex patterns of Velisari bioluminescence. He learned that a quick flash of green meant amusement, while slow pulses of blue indicated deep thought. He learned to read Lyra's moods in the colors that danced across her skin. Lyra, in turn, studied human expressions. She learned that humans showed emotion through tiny movements of facial muscles, through tone of voice, through gestures they barely noticed themselves. She found it fascinating that humans could say one thing with their words while their bodies said something completely different. Your people are not very good at hiding your feelings, she told T-Min one evening. They were sharing a meal in his quarters, eating food that had been carefully prepared to suit both their biologies. Is that a bad thing? T-Min asked. No, Lyra said, her patterns shifting to warm gold. It is beautiful. Velisari must choose to show our emotions through our patterns, but humans wear their hearts openly. I can see when you are happy, sad, worried, or excited just by looking at your face. And what do you see now? T-Min asked with a smile. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. I see contentment, I see affection, and I see a small worry in the corner of your eyes. T-Min laughed. You're right, I've been thinking about something. Tell me. Your uncle approved our courtship, but we've been careful not to define what we're actually doing. We meet, we talk, we learn about each other. But where is this going? Lyra was quiet for a moment. Her patterns cycled through several colors before settling on a deep purple. I have been thinking about this too. In Velisari culture, after courtship comes the formal bonding ceremony. It is similar to human marriage, I think. And in human culture, before marriage usually comes a proposal, a question. A question, Lyra asked. Yes, One person asks if the other will marry them. It's supposed to be special, romantic. Lyra's patterns brightened with interest. But you already asked me. That was how all of this began. No, T-Min said gently. I whispered to myself without expecting an answer. A real proposal is different. It's intentional. It's a question asked directly with the hope of a specific answer. I see, Lyra said thoughtfully. So you would ask me again, but this time knowing I could hear you. Something like that. And when do humans do this asking? T-Min smiled. Usually when they're ready to commit to spending their life with someone, when they've found the person they don't want to be without. Lyra reached across the table and took his hand. Her skin glowed softly where they touched. Have you found such a person, T-Min? His heart beat faster. I think I found her 6 months ago, standing by a window, looking at the stars. 3 weeks later, T-Min stood nervously in Commander Haewon's office. He had requested a meeting to discuss something important. I want to ask Lyra to marry me, he said, but I need to understand the legal implications. We're different species. What does that mean for us officially? Haewon leaned back in her chair. She looked tired, but her expression was kind. Legally, it's complicated. Interspecies marriages have happened before, but they're rare. You would need approval from both human and Velisari authorities. There would be paperwork, cultural evaluations, biological compatibility assessments. That sounds difficult, T-Min admitted. It is, Haewon said, but it's not impossible. Several couples have done it successfully. The real question is whether you're both ready for the challenges that will come. You'll face prejudice from some people. You'll have to decide where to live. You may not be able to have children together. I know, T-Min said, but I also know that I've never felt this way about anyone before. She makes me want to be better. She sees me, really sees me, in a way no one else ever has. Haewon smiled. Then you have your answer. I'll help you with the paperwork, but first you need to actually ask her. I'm working on that part, T-Min said. He had a plan. With Byung-ho and Jaewon's help, he had been secretly working on something special. It would take another month to complete, but it would be worth it. During that month, Lyra noticed T-Min was distracted. His patterns of behavior had changed slightly. He took longer shifts in certain areas of the station. He spent time in the garden dome when she was not there. He had quiet conversations with his friends that stopped when she approached. You are hiding something, she said one evening. Is it that obvious? T-Min asked. Your face shows everything, Lyra said, her patterns flickering with amusement. You are excited and nervous at the same time. It's a surprise, T-Min said. A good surprise, I hope. Finally, everything was ready. T-Min asked Lyra to meet him at the observation deck, the place where everything had begun. It was late in the station's night cycle, and the deck was empty except for them. Why did you want to meet here? Lyra asked. Because this is where I first saw you, T-Min said. This is where I whispered words I didn't expect anyone to hear. This is where everything changed. I remember, Lyra said softly. Her patterns glowed with gentle warmth. Since then, I've learned so much, T-Min continued. I've learned that what I felt that day wasn't just a moment of attraction. It was recognition. My heart recognized yours, even across the distance between our worlds. Lyra's patterns began to shift through multiple colors, showing her rising emotion. I've learned your language, T-Min said. Not just the words, but the colors, the patterns, the meanings that flow across your skin, and I want to show you something. He pressed a control on his wrist device. The lights in the observation deck dimmed. Then, slowly, something remarkable happened. T-Min's skin began to glow. It was not natural, of course. He had worked with Jaewon to create a temporary bioluminescent display that could be applied to human skin. It was safe, harmless, and would last for several hours, but it allowed him to do something no human had ever done before. He spoke to Lyra in her own language. The patterns that flowed across his arms, his face, his body spelled out words in the visual language of the Velisari. They were not perfect. His human skin could not create the same subtle shades and rapid transitions that Velisari could. But the message was clear. Lyra, you heard my whispered words when I did not expect to be heard. Now I ask you with full voice, with full heart, with full intention. Will you bond with me? Will you be my wife? Will you walk with me through whatever futures we create together? Lyra stood frozen. Her patterns exploded into brilliant light, cycling through every color T-Min had ever seen on her and many he had not. She was radiant, luminescent, beautiful beyond words. Yes, she said. Then she said it again in Velisari through both sound and pattern. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. They embraced, and where their bodies touched, light bloomed. T-Min's artificial patterns merged with Lyra's natural ones, creating a display that was visible even outside the observation deck. Station workers stopped in the corridors to watch the light show, smiling at what it meant. The next weeks were a blur of activity. There were forms to fill out, officials to convince, cultural representatives to satisfy. Ambassador Kale, true to his word, supported them fully. He helped navigate the Velisari bureaucracy and spoke in favor of their union. Commander Haywan did the same on the human side, cutting through red tape and calling in favors to speed the approval process. Finally, the day came for their bonding ceremony. It was held in the Garden Dome, the place where T-Min had passed his final trial. The ceremony was a blend of human and Velisari traditions. A Velisari elder spoke the ancient words of bonding, while Commander Haywan presided over the human elements. T-Min wore formal earth clothes, while Lyra wore the traditional robes of a Velisari bride. The patterns on her skin were the most beautiful T-Min had ever seen, cycling through colors that spoke of joy, love, and commitment. When the time came for vows, T-Min spoke in both Korean and the common language, but he also displayed his words through the bioluminescent patterns on his skin. He promised to learn, to grow, to bridge the distance between worlds every day. Lyra responded in kind, speaking in her own language but also learning to express some words in Korean. Her voice was gentle as she promised to see him truly, to value his humanity, to build a life that honored both their peoples. The ceremony ended with them touching foreheads, a gesture that combined human intimacy with Velisari connection. Their combined glow filled the dome with soft light. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Nexus Station had ever seen. Humans danced to Earth music while Velisari created harmonic songs that made the air shimmer. Food from a dozen worlds was shared. Different species mingled, learning from each other, celebrating this unlikely union. Byung-ho gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. Jaewon presented them with a gift, a small sculpture that showed two figures from different worlds reaching toward each other. Late in the celebration, T-Min and Lyra slipped away to the observation deck. They stood by the same window where everything had begun, looking out at the stars. "Do you remember what you were thinking?" Lyra asked. "That first day when you whispered." "I remember thinking you were beautiful," T-Min said. "I remember wondering if someone like you could ever care for someone like me. And now I know that beauty isn't about being the same," T-Min said. "It's about seeing each other completely and choosing connection anyway." Lyra's patterns shifted to the deepest, warmest gold he had ever seen. "Among my people, we believe that the heart speaks truth even when the voice does not. Your heart spoke to me that day. It said, 'I see something precious.' And my heart answered, 'I am seen.'" "What is your heart saying now?" T-Min asked. "It is saying that I am home," Lyra said. "Not in a place, but in a person. You are my home, T-Min." "And you are mine," he said. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Around them, Nexus Station hummed with life. Humans and aliens worked together, lived together, built futures together. And at the heart of it all, two souls from different worlds had found each other through a whispered word and the courage to be heard. In the years that followed, Min and Lyra became something of a legend on Nexus Station. Their marriage was not always easy. They faced challenges that single-species couples never had to consider, but they faced them together. Min developed new translation technologies based on what he learned from Lyra. His work helped other species communicate better, bridging gaps that had existed for generations. Lyra wrote extensively about human culture, helping her people understand the value of emotional expression and spontaneous connection. Together, they proved that love did not require sameness. It required honesty, courage, and the willingness to learn each other's languages, both spoken and unspoken. And sometimes, late at night, when the station was quiet and they were alone, Min would whisper to Lyra in Korean. Silly things, sweet things, private thoughts he wanted to share. And she would hear every word, her skin glowing with colors that needed no translation. Because in the end, the most important language was not words or patterns or colors. It was the language of two hearts that had learned to beat in harmony, creating something new and beautiful between the stars.